I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't know if it's gonna cut out because it did give me a yellow, like, that's a connection problem, and then even now, I had to keep trying and keep trying. So, it might cut out, and if it does, I'll just come back tomorrow, but I'd like to read a little bit. Terry, are you serious? See, love is alive. Oh, wonder who will design her a wedding dress. Um, yes, that's why I call it cake make because he's making the pancakes for Elizabeth. Okay, let's hope it doesn't cut me out. And yeah, shorts, shorts. Sit down, Mutt. We got a little while to go. Mhm, mhm. Hey, there you are. Mm. Okay, so she's like, "Oh, at the book club, and you did this," and now she's like, mm. Now she says, "And do you remember the time before that?" What are you getting at? It was the night you found me in here vacuuming. He definitely remembered that. It had been an attempt at debauchery a few months ago on an evening when Toby was at a friend's house and Jack and Elizabeth were home together alone. And it seemed like everything was going well and really clicking. And the candles were lit, a bottle of wine had been emptied, and they were in bed about to get everything started when she put her hand on his chest and said, "I'll be right back." So he waited, and finally he stopped waiting when he heard a small whir elsewhere in the apartment and left the bedroom to find Elizabeth in the kitchen cleaning the floor with her little handheld vacuum. She looked at him and turned off the machine. "There were crumbs," she said. "We had plans." "Yes, but I saw the crumbs and knew it would only take a second and then I could check it off the list." He frowned. "If someone were to ask you to choose between vacuuming the kitchen floor and having sex with your husband, which would you choose?" "I wouldn't exactly put it like that." And the next morning, he woke up early and felt worried about the whole thing and made again banana pancakes. "Oh, okay," he said now. "So I'm a boring, predictable guy because I wanted to make you pancakes. It's just a quirk I've noticed." "What a boring, conventional, vanilla guy I am, making you your favorite breakfast." "Never mind, forget it." Jack stared at her for a moment, quiet. He hated making her feel bad. He always immediately regretted it. "I'm sorry," he said. "That was mean." "And I'm sorry I sprung Kate and Kyle on you," Elizabeth said. "I should have given you some warning." "You're not sleeping with Kyle, are you?" Whoa, he just came out and said it. Seriously? No, of course not. Do you want to sleep with Kyle? Is that what you're so worried about? I don't know what to be worried about, Elizabeth. Sometimes I just have no idea what you're thinking. After all this time together, still, you can be a complete mystery to me. She nodded and flicked her eyes to the floor, smiled in her private, fleeting way. "Agatha used to say that I put up a wall, and I suppose that's true. Forgive me, it's sort of my default mode." "Yeah, so explain something. Why were you angry last night on the walk home? That's still a puzzle." She sat down at their small kitchen table, looked at its old and faded surface, the blonde wood scratched and gouged in places, stained in others. They discovered the table in an alley 15 years ago and had sanded and oiled it back into respectability. Elizabeth had recently wanted to replace the table, but Jack couldn't part with it. He imagined that the table had, over its long service, absorbed the collective aroma of their kitchen the omnibus background scent of a million loving meals. Elizabeth looked at him and said, I've been thinking a lot about our situation. What situation? Our life situation at the bottom of the U-shaped curve. Oh, that. And I've been doing some research. Of course you have, doing your Elizabeth thing. And most of the studies show that the secret to happiness at this particular moment in life is to simply try new things, to have new adventures, to change our routine. And I feel like I'm trying to do that here and there, but that you keep, well, resisting it at every turn. How so? In little ways, I suggest open shelves in the kitchen, and you're like, no, a fireplace, no, separate sleeping areas, no, not even at your job. Your boss is asking you to try something new artistically, and you're like, no, you're not even exercising anymore or wearing that orange wristband thing, which you thought was ridiculous. And last night, at the mere suggestion of going to a party that you'd have to agree would at least be interesting, you were immediately like, no. Uh, I think no was the right answer there. I don't think interesting is the word I use to describe it. My point, Jack, is that you seem to want everything to stay exactly the way it is, with no changes whatsoever. And I guess that's why I got mad. Because you want things to change? You want our marriage to change? Jack, listen to me. She stood up and walked toward him, took his hands in hers. I found something, or I found everything I ever wanted with you. I mean that. When I left home and came to Chicago, I had no idea what would happen. I just wanted to make a decent life, and I wanted to find a good guy and maybe have a beautiful family together and live in a nice home, and look what happened. I got all of that. And yet now you're bored. No, not bored, just no longer seduced by the mystery of it all. Life's big hard questions. What will happen? Who will I become? Have largely been answered. And now I feel like there's this huge absence where the mystery used to be. And I guess that's really what I'm after. The mystery. The adventure of it. I don't know if Kate and Kyle are right. I don't know if marriage is a broken institution. But I do know that if we went to that party, I have no idea what would happen there. And that mystery feels kind of delicious. Ugh. 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 I never liked Elizabeth, but it's like less and less. Ugh. She talks about delicious and this just like these men and their devil eggs. It actually makes me feel sick. Just then, their phones chimed simultaneously. A message for both of them. It turned out Kate, who had written, Such a pleasure meeting up with you, love birds. Looking forward to our next encounter. Kate had punctuated their message with an emoji that Jack didn't know the meaning of, though Toby had tried once to teach him the intricate symbology of each word glype. This one was a yellow face with raised eyebrows, looking slyly to the right and smiling. This could mean, if Jack's memory served, that Kate was maybe hungover or sarcastic or smug, or keeping a secret, or feeling attractive, or saying hey there in a seductive or vulgar way. Jack and Elizabeth rested their phones on the countertop and looked at each other. Do you really think, he said, that attending some depraved party is going to fill your life with happiness? Of course not, she said. But I also know that life will not feel satisfying without some mystery, some adventure, some thrill. That's what the science says, anyway. And this is the particular thrill you want. This is just the closest one at hand. I see. Let's go do a crazy thing, okay? That's all this is. For the first time in a long time, let's not act like parents. Let's be like we used to be. Let's be unconventional. Let's not be so plain. There was that word, plain. It brought him back to those evenings around the kitchen table with his mother and his sister. Oh my god. So she wants to do, um, you're just still following what everyone else is doing. You're still being conventional. You're still just trying to be like someone else. Why don't you read Eat, Fucking, Pray, Love and do what she did, that stupid bitch? So they convinced all these women to divorce their husbands so they could go eat fucking pasta and pray in fucking Bali. That stupid bitch, Elizabeth Kilbar. I hate her. Anyway. Ugh. Those times his sister was visiting, and she would go off hiking in the Flint Hills all day and return with arrowheads or bits of quartz or shells fossilized to calcite or gray stones that she insisted were hardened chunks of magma pushed up from the center of the earth. Miracles, she said, all of them. Evelyn was a person enchanted by everything, but Ruth, enchanted by nothing, would snort, "Those are just rocks, plain and simple." Jack had come to Chicago to be like Evelyn, but in parenthood, maybe he thought now he'd turn out more like Ruth. He had, unbeknownst to himself, become plain. He had become simple. He had become vanilla. "Fine," he said to Elizabeth now. "You're right. Let's do it, okay? I'm in." "Really? Fuck it. Sure. Let's go have an adventure." But even as Elizabeth hugged him, and even as she excitedly said she was calling Kate right now, Jack wondered if maybe it was another impulse he was honoring. Not the impulse to be different, but the impulse to be the same. Exactly. To go along with things, to be part of a herd. Maybe it was that old childish impulse to fit in, to hide, to appease. He remembered the lengths he used to go to as a boy, the horrible things he would do to be agreeable, to avoid fights. He never said no back then, never stood up for himself. He once rubbed the skin off his hand clear away with a pencil eraser so other boys would not notice him, so he could fit in. He looked down at his hand, tilted it under the light. He found that if he made a fist and held it just so, he could still see the scar. All right, and now begins the next section, the meaning effect. Two patients suffering from lower back pain visited an acupuncturist. The acupuncturist performs a long consultation with each patient that involves examining their tongue's color and shape and general tumescence for telltale signs of ill health, then measuring the rate and depth and force of their heartbeat in both the left and right wrists simultaneously, then pressing fingers into important pressure points, searching for signals of bodily disturbance or bioimbalance. And during this authoritative seeming examination, it is explained to the patients that the specialized and tiny stainless steel acupuncture needles inserted precisely into the relevant nodes and meridians along their spine will unblock essential life forces, stimulating the body to release its effervescent healing energy, which will ultimately cure their back pain. Have you any of you guys done acupuncture? Who would I pick among you that would have done it? I'm leaning toward Terry because I feel like he would just try weird things for the hell of it. Or maybe John, because John's fancy and it sounds like a fancy word. But I don't know. You haven't, yeah. I don't know if anyone here has. But I guess a lot of people do. I mean, it's kind of a thing in a lot of places. I don't know. I've never known. Oh, thank you, Jerry. I think I saw it on TV once, but I can't totally remember. A movie? I don't know. Um, the other patient is secretly given a placebo treatment The acupuncturist only pressing the skin of the bat with a toothpick, which mimics the sensation of the needle's light prick, but without their customary puncture. Thus, both patients believe they received real acupuncture. And it turns out that over time, both of them have exactly the same chance of being cured of their back pain. It turns out that it doesn't really matter whether they received real acupuncture or sham acupuncture, the outcome is the same, which, according to Dr. Otto Sanborn, proved that acupuncture, well, at least the version of acupuncture practiced in the capitalist West, was fake, merely a placebo, was how Sanborn described it in his study of a statistically significant number of lower back pain sufferers and found that the success rate of real acupuncture and fake acupuncture was basically identical, around 44%. Sanborn dispatched this report with great relish and then treated the office to celebratory drinks at a nearby bar after work. Whenever he discovered some new phony treatment or nonsense uh, medicine, he tended to be jolly for weeks. And when he spoke about this, especially after a few whiskeys, his eyes got wide and his face grew crayon pink. Such was his exhilaration at exposing the mind's follies. But that day at the bar, Elizabeth found herself turning over the results in her head and thinking that the most interesting thing about the acupuncture finding was not necessarily that acupuncture had failed to perform any better than the placebo. No, for Elizabeth, the most interesting thing was that placebo had actually performed quite well. This was not long after Elizabeth's unraveling at the grocery store and her subsequent triumph with the United Airlines gig, and so she'd already been thinking about the utility, not to mention profitability, of using placebo rather than eliminating it. For here was a back pain treatment that required no surgery, no addictive drugs, nothing more expensive than a toothpick, had no side effects, and was successful almost half the time. It was the very definition of a quality medical intervention. And if a treatment was this effective, should we really worry about whether it was technically real? It made her wonder if instead of eliminating lies, maybe she could somehow harness them. Perhaps people weren't suckers for falling for a placebo. Perhaps falling for a placebo could be, in certain cases, helpful, useful, even ideal. Example, oysters are not in any real scientifically reproducible way aphrodisiacs. If you give someone a dozen oysters and then measure their brain chemistry, you will find none of the specific hormones or neurotransmitters of sexual arousal. I don't know if I believe her, but I'll tell you what, I know for a fact that pork does make the guys go wild. And I'll tell you how I know. Because Rex would, and Rex didn't even have any balls. But if he had pork, he would get, like one of those things. And it's like, he's feeling some kind of way. It's the pork. Okay. Oysters, I know. How would I know? I didn't give my dog oysters. I don't know if he'd be allergic to that. And I've never had oysters, so I wouldn't be buying them. But still, I don't know if I believe her. Elizabeth's kind of a moron. However, if you take a couple who believes that oysters are, in fact, aphrodisiacs, and you have them get all dressed up for a date night where they will be eating oysters together, and they go to a nice romantic restaurant that is famous for its oysters, and they pay a good amount of money for those oysters, then you do a brain scan and you will find that their relevant glands have become hormonal geysers. In other words, by believing a story that was technically untrue, they created an elaborate ritual around the story which had the effect of making the story true. Or here's another one. Chicken soup does not have any intrinsic properties that can cure the common cold, but when chicken soup is administered to a sick child by a caring mother who serves it with deep parental authority, the duration and severity of the child's cold will generally lessen. Ugh, this woman is so dumb. First of all, what are you supposed to do? Eat nothing? And then you're gonna, like, what? You'll just die. You have to eat. Food is medicine. Food has it's made up of whatever, like, that's going to affect your body, whatever minerals, whatever. And so it's like, yeah, it does help. It helps to eat. It helps your body heal, you moron, or whatever else. You are what you eat. We're literally, what do you think we're made out of? How do you think? Well, because we're consuming things and making cells in our bodies. You think every night the fairy godmother goes, "Ba-doo, boop, here, make new cells. From what? You have to eat." I'm sorry. Elizabeth Girlbrain. I wish I had her name that it was like one syllable so I could say it more cruel. Like Jack, you can just be like Jack. If it was just Beth, you could be like Beth and just spit it out of your mouth, Beth. But Elizabeth is like too long. She needs a nickname. Or the fact that absinthe never actually contained any hallucinogens. This, even though all those great writers and artists of Paris, Baudelaire, Rimbaud, Van Gogh, Monet, Toulouse-Lautrec, swore that it did. They all made poems and paintings about hallucinatory visits from the Green Fairy, despite the fact that, scientifically speaking, absinthe had no special mind-altering qualities beyond that it was alcoholic. So, how to explain these sincere collective accounts of hallucination? Elizabeth's theory, if you make absinthe a marker of insider status among an intellectual bohemian set that's rebelling against a repressive culture, in particular, a culture that considers the drinking of absinthe decadent and degenerate. And if you then build an elaborate ceremony around reveling in the degeneracy of drinking absinthe, that involves a special absinthe glass and a slotted absinthe spoon with cubed sugar set atop the spoon that is dissolved slowly, drop by drop, using exactly the correct ratio of absinthe and ice water in order to allegedly release the absinthe hallucinatory essential oils. And if further, you then expect and believe that this whole long ritual results in a concoction that will give you strange visions upon drinking enough of it, then indeed it probably will. It was the ritual that was important, the acupuncturist's thorough examination, the couple's elaborate date, the mother's comforting home remedy, the ceremonial mixing of the absinthe. It was in these observances that the placebo effect activated and materialized the transubstantiation of belief into reality, of story into truth, a metaphor made flesh. Glitter. Change it to Beth. Oh, Terry. I'll do what I want, Beth. Elizabeth called this phenomenon the meaning effect, a term she much preferred to placebo effect because to say that these effects arose from placebo implied that they arose from nothing, for that's what placebo traditionally was, an inert substance, literally and intentionally useless, when in fact the placebo effect was elicited by the strong sense of significance and substance surrounding the placebo itself, the context, story, ritual, metaphor, and beliefs associated with placebo. The placebo effect was, in fact, the brain's response to finding meaning. See, I don't see why they have to give people placebos in like a cancer study or something. Because it's like, first of all, if you gave me a placebo or you said like you don't know if you're getting it or not, I'm going to assume I'm not getting it. I'm going to assume, well, fuck my luck. I know what my luck is. I'm not getting it. I'm just going to die. So, like, you wouldn't even be like, oh, see, it's just a placebo. Theirs are working or any better. Like, no. Why don't you just use, what do you, what do you call it? You're, when you're doing a study and one group is one way and the other, you need like a person that's like not participating to base it on. It'll come to me. Why don't you just do that? But like, okay, all the people that have cancer, they're not getting this. We'll just consider it. Oh, double blind. The uh, focus group. Um, it's not coming to me. Whatever. Control group. Thank you, Tommy. Yes, you're the control one. Yeah, I'm the one you're. Yeah. All right, we'll pick it up here tomorrow with her placebos. Mm. Thank you, Terry. I forget what I was gonna say. Anyway, I got my pumpkin spice. Maybe I'll get another one tomorrow. I love you so much. I'm gonna make salmon tonight for me on that one. I hope this weather is gonna stop so that it can. But anyway, I see you tomorrow. Don't believe anything Beth says. You can have your chicken noodle soup.